Welcome to Cassette Connection, the podcast where we discuss music and meaning with the people who make it. My name is Ben, and with me is Alex.
In this episode, we're talking to Sydney-based multi-instrumentalist, drummer and producer Alec Brinsmead. Alec is a percussionist who plays in multiple acts, including the folk rock band the Tipsy Scholars. He also produces dance and house music under the alias Sonny Grin.
Alec discusses his thoughts and experiences around making music in multiple settings. He talks to us about his journey as a musician, his influences, his learning through performance, and how this has created his unique sound.
Here's how it went down.
Hi, I'm Sonny Grin. I make kind of groovy electronic type dance music. I'm from Sydney. Been kind of doing my solo stuff for about 2 years now, and previously I played a lot in bands, and just been trying to release as much music as I can and incorporate the stuff that I've learned from playing in bands for the past decade or so into this solo stuff. So I started playing music when I was really young. Like, my dad's a guitarist, and he used to play a lot and play quite a few gigs, and had like little recording setups at home. So I just kind of grew up playing with dad, and between him and his mates, they kind of gave me the basics on just kind of like time, but I didn't really feel like they were teaching me. It was just kind of that we were jamming, and they kind of lead by example, I guess. And so that kind of continued, and I didn't do like the band program in primary school. Like, I just kind of, it was never a chore. Like, dad, he didn't really want me to do anything. He was just like kind of saw what I was good at, and I naturally kind of was drawn to the drums. So I played a lot of drums, and him being a guitarist, it was kind of easy for us to jam around at home. Like, didn't really have the space or the funds for a drum kit at home, but we would kind of borrow bits and pieces from people, and so I'd kind of jam out in our little house. And then once I kind of got to high school, around that age, I was kind of doing some gigs with dad, and we kind of do weddings and like a couple of little, like bars and restaurant-y type things. And then I started playing, with, guys my own age, and which was awesome. Like, some of the guys who I ended up playing with in high school, like, I think my first kind of proper band when I was in about 8 or 9, that was with Marcus Bridge, who's like the lead singer of Northlane, which is pretty loose. Just kind of always kind of gravitated towards like, playing drums in bands. And then I joined the school like jazz band on bass, because they already had a drummer who was badass. And so dad, because I'd played a bit of guitar around the house, like, dad was like, you should try the bass. So there's a couple of basic things from guitar that's quite easily transferable onto bass. So got a bass, and I kind of got into the only way you could play in the jazz band, which is what I wanted to do, was if you played in the concert band. So I had to play in the concert band, which, like a mixed public school wasn't like the coolest thing to do, but I definitely enjoyed it, and it taught me a lot, and I kind of benefit a lot from those early kind of days of bass playing and reading and like playing in the in the bigger ensembles and stuff today. It's just like good foundations. And then like kind of did a bunch of things. I was playing like more like kind of rock and post-hardcore like throughout school, and then playing jazz. So it was an interesting mix, and I kind of knew all along that music was what I really wanted to do, and I was really lucky to have teachers who supported that. And I was playing in people's HSE like final school exam pieces from when I was like 12, and I was allowed to kind of like get out of class and go play with the older kids, which was cool. And yeah, like I think a lot of that kind of benefited, yeah, from that, just in terms of, playing with different people and jamming, and yeah, just that kind of environment was really good for your musicianship and just kind of understanding like just basic arranging and that kind of thing. And then yeah, tried out for music uni. Didn't get in the first year. Was a bit sad. And then bought a PlayStation, and I dislocated my shoulder. So it was an interesting couple of months when I was 18. And then that's when I kind of got into the electronic side of things. Like I'd mess around just like making mashups and kind of putting them on SoundCloud and then playing them at parties, which was cool. Like, because I kind of figured I had an ear for that kind of thing, and it was very much just like wait until the perfect time of the party and then jump on the aux cord and play the little, like 3-song mashup that I'd made, and people would get around me, which was cool. And started DJing, and because I couldn't play drums as much, like yeah, just started messing around on Audacity, just kind of chopping things together. And then I got like a version of Acid, like the program, and that was kind of cool. And I got into ANU, and yeah, went down there, and yeah, just kind of like kept tinkering, and eventually got Ableton. And I never really, like, throughout kind of high school and uni, like I wrote songs, but I never really had like a certain idea of what I wanted to do and what kind of music I wanted to make. Because I was just, yeah, I'd be playing, be opening the pit up with my post-hardcore boys, but then, getting deep into like Pat Metheny and, like Miles Davis and all the jazz stuff. And I didn't really have much of like an identity in terms of what I wanted my own stuff to look like. And I'm a very big kind of like team person, like with sport, with music. Like I like kind of doing stuff with other people, like a bit of a collaborative puppy dog. It was only kind of, yeah, like 2018 where I kind of I've been doing a lot of DJing in like the years previously, which like would never have happened if I didn't live in Canberra. Like the community there was just super open, and I kind of had never really DJed before, but I kind of I was really keen, and I'd been playing like some uni parties, and then yeah, I got my first kind of club gig, playing at Transit, which was like supporting Safia, which is so loose, like because they're like massive now. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to make the music that I liked DJing, because it was like, even though when you're DJing, like I was, wasn't DJing in a duo or anything, I was DJing by myself. Like it kind of, when you're doing it well, it feels like you're not doing it by yourself. Like you've got the crowd and they've kind of got you, and it's like this, you're linked in like an awesome way. So I really kind of liked that. And just being able to like color people's nights, like you could see like the change in people when you play good songs, and it's suddenly like, okay, they've now had a great time, and like I've affected their, how their week how they're gonna reflect on their week, probably come a Sunday hungover brunch. But like, yeah, it was, I think from there I kind of decided, on a bit more of a style. And yeah, like it was the reaction I got from my friends, and like, the first like little industry, kind of like feedback responses were really good when I released my first song in, yeah, like back end of 2018. And I hadn't really written anything like chords, lyrics, produced before. Like I kind of collaborated with releases in the bands I played in, and that kind of thing. But just like writing everything and putting it all together myself, like it was just like a good affirmation of I can do this. Like you just kind of got to back yourself, And yeah, like since 2018, I just released my 5th single 2 weeks ago. And yeah, the project's going well. I think now that I've kind of established myself in a small kind of way, like within like the Sydney kind of scene, like it'll just be, yeah, pushing the music to kind of, yeah, really incorporate the stuff that I'm good at and also like make it kind of translate into that um, kind of dance, like housey, but like organic kind of world, which I think like in Australia is, yeah, like I feel like we're doing that really well, like, especially up in Brisbane with guys like First Page and Sampology and like Pink Matter. I think, you know, there's a really cool kind of organic but danceable sound, which like has a lot of improvisation and like natural sounds and dope synths that I think like, yeah, is something that I personally find really interesting, and I like that's the kind of stuff that really kind of ticks all my boxes. You know, the improvisational stuff and the jazz, like the dance stuff from DJing, like, you know, the natural sounds from like me playing drums and bass, and I think, yeah, that's kind of at the moment what I'm trying to capture with the Sonny Grin project. You know, it's an interesting thing that's happening now where like, you know, people are really highlighting where like musical styles come from. And, you know, I think when you like from studying jazz and kind of like even just, you know, without jazz, there wouldn't be a drum kit. You know, like it was through the development of jazz that the drum kit was made. And I think, yeah, like any kind of bands that kind of have an understanding of jazz and just like the improvised side of things, like I kind of always like, because it's that unpredictability, and also the thing of like if you ever see one of those bands live, it's never going to be the same show twice, you know. So like the whole like Hiatus Coyote are like one of my favorite bands, you know, and like such a force, um you know, not just in Australia but probably more so like internationally. Like, you know, you've got guys like Kendrick and Drake and Anderson .Paak who've all like collaborated or just like used their stuff on their albums. And I think like, yeah, I'm definitely really influenced from that aspect of, you know, it kind of ticks a lot of the boxes that I like in terms of interesting harmony and like rhythms and, um, you know, but still kind of got that soul side of things where like it's memorable and like hooky, like catchy, but not to the point of like, you know, that's the only reason why the song exists is to like give you an earworm kind of thing. You know, it's yeah. So I really like that kind of stuff, and get like Robert Glasper, listening to his stuff, especially like the albums with like Chris Dave. Um, that side of things, just in terms of like getting an ear for like interesting harmony. I'm really kind of trying with the newer, like kind of unreleased stuff, like, yeah, just trying different voicings and harmony that I find interesting and kind of like can color things well, like that Black Radio album, which I think, you know, is like a staple for a lot of people who kind of did any kind of tertiary study. Like that kind of sound was really awesome and like inspiring. And yeah, I think like in terms of, because I approach a lot of things from a drumming and like rhythm perspective, like drummers, you know, like, you know, going back to like kind of like Elvin Jones. I really like Elvin. I really like, you know, kind of like the next generation of like, you know, like Steve Gadd and, um, yeah, and like kind of before in like Tony Williams, I really like those kind of guys, and then like kind of more modern like Questlove and Chris Dave and Eric Harland. You know, they're just guys who can play like simple pocket stuff, but then branch out. And I think like when it comes to dance stuff, you have to have some kind of consistent pulse so people can groove and, you know, people can, yeah, it's kind of, you know, dance is like kind of relying upon like some kind of something that people can grip their teeth into. And so for me, it's kind of like keeping it solid, but then putting in like, um, you know, the intricacies that kind of make interesting for me, but also kind of, I think, like give a bit of uniqueness and like will breathe like a bit of life into the tunes. Like I always try and record my own shakers and claps, and I want to do like more kind of like natural kind of hi-hat sounds. And in the latest single, there's like I kind of stack a lot of tom sounds, and yeah, it's all like natural clicks and claps.
Tell me something, baby. I don't wanna do you wrong, but you're making it hard for me. It's all or nothing, baby. I don't wanna see you gone, but I can't keep it up. Keep it up.
I think if I don't start a song by, you know, making like a beat first, or like a kind of like a palette of sounds, drum sounds that I like, you know, it's definitely kind of, for me, it's always a focus. And I think sometimes I maybe could simplify things just when it comes to mixing, and I'm like trying to balance like these three different clap samples at the same time, you know, like, but yeah, for me, like that's, yeah, I'm trying to actually like kind of go the other way and really kind of focus on like the harmony and the chords and the melody first, and then like shaping the percussion around it and the beat around it. Because I think like sometimes, you know, because I know, you know, I spent years studying, so I kind of know how to make things sound, you know, kind of good if I like shake the shaker in a certain way, and I, you know, do some clicks and claps, like, and then just, you know, put a nice kick pattern in, like it's gonna sound kind of good. But I don't want to kind of just kind of get trapped and just make the same kind of thing over again. So I that's why like I try and as much as I can kind of vary the BPMs, the tempos of the song, so I don't kind of just go naturally into like my rhythmic comfort zone and like use all this kind of same techniques in each song. But yeah, I think for me that's what instantly what I, you know, I relate to as a listener is like other drums slapping, like, you know, like, you know, is there a cool hi-hat pattern, like, or like did they get a conga player in, or is that just a sample that's like really creatively chopped? Like, you know, I try really hard not to like make any loops when I'm doing it. Like if like in my track Lungs, which I did with my friend Katz, that the shaker in that song is one take. Like I just did the shaker from top to bottom because I wanted that kind of like lively thing. And so for me, yeah, like I tend to focus on the percussion side of things a lot more, because for me that's like, and that's like kind of the essence of dance music is like, you know, you hit play on just like an instrumental kind of drum percussion track, and if it's at the right BPM and like, you know, it grooves, like people are going to dance without any kind of chordal, you know, vocal accompaniment. You know, if you get that right, then, you know, people are going to move. So like sometimes I like starting with that, and then it's just like about, you know, finding things that complement that rather than, you know, taking away from that initial thing which you've already kind of gotten right. But I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was saying and you guys probably get this, like when you're writing a song, you have that first initial idea and it sounds really good, and then every time you add something to it, it kind of like takes away from it. And my mate, yeah, Hugo, Hugo, he's a saxophone player, old housemate of mine. He was I was making something. We had a session, and I was like, man, it just sounds so good. Like, and he's like, bro, you're literally just frying onions and garlic. You know, he's like, that's the onions and garlic. You started anything, housemate walks in, like, well, what's cooking? Everyone, as soon as the onion touches the pan with the olive oil and the garlic, people are like, oh man, what's going on? And so it's that kind of same principle of like, you have like a dope drum beat and the bass line, and you're like, cool. And then as soon as you add stuff in, you're kind of forcing it to kind of go in a certain direction. Are you making a lasagna? Are you doing an omelet? Like it's, so I think sometimes, yeah, I can get a little too focused on that and, be afraid to kind of take something in a certain direction because it doesn't sound good immediately. But yeah, I think that'll always and I'm trying to, make my sound a bit identifiable. My favorite producers like Kate Trinata, who's like, yeah, he changed the game like easily. He's just so good. And yeah, he's between like them and Disclosure in terms of like my influence for like the producing side of things. Like Disclosure made me like house music, and Kate Trinata like just blew my mind with how funky he made things, like. So I was like house music, that's like Swedish House Mafia and Calvin Harris, I was like, dude, some early Calvin Harris does like groove heaps, but like, do you know what I mean? And then like when I heard Kate Trinata, I was like, this is the best. Like those are my early days of SoundCloud as well, which is probably like when I was just getting to uni and when I was just starting DJing, like just like, I remember playing like a Jill Scott, Kate Trinata like remix at like a little uni event. It was like 200 people. I put that on, and it was just like, I was loving it. I didn't even look up because I was just so stoked. I looked up and everyone was grooving heaps hard, but yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, like when you hear a K-Tra, like I hear a song and I'm like, dang, that's K-Tra. Like unreleased or released, you can always tell very early. Even when he crosses the hip hop stuff and the house dance stuff, but it still sounds like him. He's an absolute beast. So I think with my sound, I'm kind of like, yeah, like natural kind of dynamic percussion, and then like, kind of like Nile Rodgers, kind of like that funky kind of Prince, guitar, and yeah, like. I play a lot of bass guitar on my stuff, which I think that already kind of gives stuff a life, because I feel like when people use bass guitar a lot in like dance stuff, a lot of times it's a sample, so it's kind of not really like kind of changing throughout the song. You don't really get too many variations. But yeah, so I think the percussion stuff is definitely a big part of me, like shaping my sound.
Got these different approaches to collaboration, but I'm wondering how do you start? Where's your collaborative process begin? Is it you're coming up with the bass idea and then you're pushing it on someone, or are you sitting down together and saying, yeah, look, I've got this idea, or something like that?
Yeah, it kind of changes. Like as I said, I'm definitely like I like making music with other people, so. And that's the great thing about like the electronic space and like the producer space, is like that's expected, well, not expected, but that's like kind of welcomed. People, work with different you'll have like an album, and there'll be 10 different vocalists on that album. If the producer or production or the producers, like there's not a vocalist between them. So that's something I really like. And so, for example, like before, like my first single, like yeah, I wrote all that, and then I got my mate Ollie, who I play drums for in his band, to like come and sing it. And then with that's kind of the same thing with Keep It Up, the latest track. I kind of wrote and produced everything, and like bring a vocalist in it once everything's kind of pretty set. in stone, like conceptually and parts wise. But with lungs, with cats, like, because we met playing for this like awesome kind of R&B poppy singer, Ange, and so Casper plays keys in that band, and I played drums, and we were just kind of jamming. And so he's a nut, like he's so good, like comes from, you know, studied jazz and like really classical kind of piano stuff, but then he's like the Ableton wizard that I needed in my life, like to show me the shortcut that I needed. You know, it's just so many times he's just told me like, hey man, you know, you can do this, right? I'm like, oh, you know, I've been doing this wrong for 2 years, like feel like an idiot. But yeah, so he's a beast. So we literally just like set up all our stuff. So he kind of like, so I like some pads and percussion. I bought like my guitar, and he like has like his, you know, Juno and plus all his other keys, and so he kind of set up a bass sound and like a synth sound, and we just kind of press record. And like lungs is actually maybe like that's like a third of like a 15-minute jam or something. We just we jammed like. And the cool thing was, because we come from that improvisational kind of listening to each other jazz mentality, that when it comes to jamming like that, it was just so easy, you know. And because he was across like all his technology side of things, and you know, so was I. Like we had the sounds ready, it already sounded, the sounds and stuff were there in terms of like the synth sounds and the percussion samples. We kind of like built like a drum kit sound, and you know, and then we just like hit record and we played, and yeah, like we just chopped a chunk out of it and was like, well, these are the best bits. Like happened, you know, after about 3 minutes and up to about 10 minutes, and then we just kind of shaped it from there and kind of added some bits and pieces and simplified some stuff and tidied up some things. But yeah, that's why that's kind of song like feels so kind of organic in the way it kind of bops along, because yeah, it was just like it was a jam. Playing in the Scholars has probably really shaped my kind of collaboration skills a lot as well. Like definitely owe a lot to those boys, just because we've got 2 lead singers, they both bring in songs, so it's kind of like the workshopping, you know, time, and you know this as well, like you guys would, when you're workshopping a song that's kind of brought to the group and stuff like that, I think it's really good, because you would explore things that your initial reaction wouldn't be to explore. You'd be like, oh, well, that's not going to sound good. But when you've got other people, like you want to like respect their kind of opinion. So you do that. And then sometimes, you know, like I can be a bit of a know-it-all and think I've got it all sorted. And then sometimes I'm like, nah, it's dumb. And then we do it. I'm like, okay, now that's the best thing I've ever heard. You know, like, we're like, yeah. So I think especially as I'm growing as an artist, I think having other people to bounce off of, you know, is important. And yeah, I think like it's helping me. Yeah, just I think each collaboration I've done, I've kind of grown like musically one way or the other.
Think on me for now. Breathe on me for now. Gonna feed a fan. Don't pip yourself at the post. We'll cross that bridge when it's closed. Hey,
you know, the Tipsy Scholars, yeah, we've kind of changed our sound now, but when we started, it was very like, you know, it was folky. It was like Mumford and Sonsy, like, you know, banjos, ukulele, banjos, mandolins. You know, like now it's kind of going towards like more kind of middle kids, Courtney Barnett, kind of Smith Street Band type of sound, but you know, which is still like worlds away from the Sonny Grin, you know, like dance stuff. But I think just as a listener, I don't listen to just the same. Like I listen to a lot of different music, and I think, um, yeah, I just kind of I've always liked kind of singer songwriter stuff. Like one of my favorite artists, you know, for the past couple of years has been Angie McMahon. Like, you know, I really like, you know, how she kind of, uh, you know, the emotion. Like with dance music, sometimes is, you know, people don't really want to hear about super deep things when they're like trying to cut shapes with their shoulder at like 1 a.m. in the club. You know, like I think, um, you know, I've always really liked kind of storytellers like, you know, like Paul Kelly, you know, like Crowded House, you know, that's the kind of as mainstream as things got in my, you know, growing up. But like, you know, my parents are big fans of like, you know, Crowded House and Paul Kelly and guys like Peter Gabriel and Sting and, you know, and like even kind of going more like country, like, or like, you know, like James Taylor, you know, a great storyteller. And so I've always kind of related to that kind of, you know, because musicians, you know, we got a lot of feelings, you know, like I kind of, I really like music that kind of explores that. And I think with the Scholars, you know, so James, we've got, yeah, two lead singers, two kind of, and they both write really well and in a similar kind of style, which is, and it's a lot of storytelling, you know, kind of stuff, which is great because like you'll never, the content of the songs, you won't have heard that before, or at least told in that same way. Like, you know how Paul Kelly will, you know, reference streets and places, and it's kind of like when you're listening to that, you're like, oh, I've been there. And I think that's kind of, with the Scholars, that's a similar kind of thing. You know, like Connor and James will, uh, yeah, really kind of paint a picture. And I think I will always, you know, have a that kind of music will always kind of have a place in my, you know, day to day, because yeah, you know, I get something different from every kind of genre that I listen to. And like when you listen to someone like Courtney Barnett, like, you know, it's not about the chord changes and like, you know, the um like the intricate, there's no really intricate drums. It's like the music is kind of a vessel for the message. And I think, you know, so like I really like listening to her kind of storytelling, the way it's kind of like seeing poetry kind of stuff. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in the Scholars, and I think, yeah, it's been, yeah, a great kind of process just from like growing in terms of like, you know, I book our shows and just getting a good understanding of like the industry, but with, you know, three of my best mates with me at the same time, you know, just like from, you know, shit like just getting your music up on Spotify to what, you know, how, what kind of supports you should be doing and contacting venues and, you know, um, yeah, I definitely, it's a completely different world, like genre wise, but you know, we're all kind of in the same industry, in the same kind of cities. So I think there's been a lot of crossover, just in terms of, you know, like people who've mixed Scholars stuff, like Lou Montgomery in Canberra. You know, he's mixed stuff for like Sonny Grin, and you know, there'll be, yeah, like there's you know, there's people who kind of like the Scholar stuff, but then also, you know, like my stuff as well. So there's been like a nice kind of uh, transfer of like some fans there too. So I think, yeah, while yeah, it's super different. I definitely kind of get a lot out of, yeah, just playing that style of music and being able to kind of uh, use that kind of aspect of my drumming as well, which like I wouldn't kind of really get to use otherwise as much. So yeah, always will have time for those boys, and yeah, it's always super grateful for, you know, the like how much we've kind of all grown together throughout like the progression of that band.
It's a few minutes to 12 and now I've got a couple bucks to buy a beer. Well, you might as well spend it in. Hey, friend. Hey,
I think maybe then we can roll on to maybe your performance style, because I guess that being in the band kind of informs a bit of your performance technique. I've seen you play in the band, and I've seen you play by yourself, and I've seen you play in multiple kind of settings. And each time you kind of take on a different role. I guess it depends on the setting and who you're with, what you're doing, what you're there to do.
I think when it came to doing the Sonny Grin stuff, like a lot of things that kind of accumulated were like just some of my own frustrations with people. Like when I've been DJing, people still don't understand like really what DJing is. You know, like people got like most punters will have no idea what you're doing. So, and that kind of used to frustrate me. And then I used to, then I would see kind of like a lot of these acts, like electronic acts, doing a live set, and they would kind of be, it would be like a dance kind of, people would be looking to dance and, interact, and they would just be kind of like hunched over. They're like Ableton push or whatever, and just like going ham, like, really kind of, and like doing their key stuff. But they're like, people weren't really interacting with, like, they were interacting with the music, but not really the performer, if that makes sense. Like people were dancing, but like, I feel like it's kind of hard to engage when you're like bent over, like worrying about like triggering, all these different things that people just like, people don't really, I would say the average kind of person who goes to a gig who's not a musician, who understands like electronic production, will understand what you're doing a lot of the time. Like people don't understand that you pushing that button is actually like, like triggering this sound effect, and then you're like launching this Ableton scene now, and then you're about to filter off the vocals. Like it's, I kind of, there are times where I'm like, that's really like, people have made that work. Like someone like Sampology, he's like one of the best at doing that kind of stuff. But for me, I was like, especially starting off, I was like, well, I don't want to be like busting my ass, kind of doing all these things which people aren't really going to understand, because they don't even understand me transitioning one song to the other and how that works. Like, how are they going to understand that hundreds of hours I put into, curating my set on Ableton, like just for like the particular style of music. Like, there's definitely lots of styles and kind of crowd types which, and audiences which, do kind of are there for a really kind of intricate demonstration of what you can do with like electronic technology and like controllers and like, in that realm. But for the music I was making, I was like, well, people are here to have a good time, and I want to like be able to bounce off them, and them to be able to see my energy and, kind of use that to kind of fuel like their enjoyment type of thing. So when it came to the Sonny Grin stuff, like from playing with other kind of electronic acts, I kind of knew how I wanted to run things, but I also I wanted to make sure that I was playing a lot of bass and guitar and like still whacking on the drums, because people understand that. Like you lay down a fat bass line, people understand that you're playing the bass, like you like do a guitar solo, people get that. You don't have to really have an understanding of music at all to see that someone's like shredding, or like, my case, attempting to shred over some like basic kind of disco changes, like and then like, so, and then I can really kind of show off to an extent, when I'm playing like the drum kind of percussion aspect of things. I can really kind of stretch out and people can kind of be like, whoa, I haven't really seen something like that before. So with the live stuff, I really wanted to keep myself kind of looking up and interacting with the crowd and moving around and dancing around as possible, because like I think when you're a front man who doesn't sing, it's kind of hard, or I was worried that it was going to be hard for people to kind of understand what's going on. And like people go and see DJs who, it's just one person, they're not singing any of their songs, but that's kind of what they're there for. They kind of have an understanding of that. But, when you see like all this kind of live, you see all this equipment set up on stage, and then, like I wanted to be able to kind of lead people throughout their night and kind of, interact. And yeah, like, depending on, the set, and, if I'm doing a supporter headline, I love playing with other people, and I love horns. Like horns is like something that gets me, right in the middle of my being. Like I love just like crispy, like nice, like stacked range, like horn lines. And so I have these two brothers, Jimmy and Eddie, who play with me like trumpet and trombone, and like people like that's something that people get as well. And immediately, like if I've got like, if I'm playing bass but I don't want to spend like 5 minutes looping the keys and the drums and the guitar, like, if I've got a song that's quite track heavy, and then you add some live horns on top while I'm playing the bass, like, people like, I feel like for me, that is the perfect balance, between like the consistency you get from like a DJ set and the live energy and like, one time only kind of aspect you get from like a live band, like, so, and then, I've been lucky that like the singers I play with, I also play in their bands. So like, I'm like, well, I play drums for your like $40 payout, get some cold hot chips, so like you can come and sing like a couple of songs with me and have a party. So I'm lucky that like I've got guys like KP Hydes and Ollie Sherman, like Ange, who can like, we've got that kind of relationship where I can get them up for a couple of songs. And for people, it's like, okay, this person's up, they do 2 songs. It's like, oh, okay, wow, that was like a thing. And now, then I go do something else and I bring someone else up, and it's kind of like a cool, it kind of differentiates the songs, and like, each person brings particular energy. So I really like doing that. But like in terms of how practical that'll be when I start doing more kind of tours, and, won't be able to afford to take, 6 of my closest musician friends, away with me. But for the moment, while I'm still kind of cutting my teeth, not in terms of like performing, but in terms of just like how I want to arrange the show, I think, it's been great kind of being able to have those guys kind of come up and be amazing and kind of add to the whole experience. And I know that like, well, I hope they like it. They seem to keep coming back, so.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Tell me something, baby. I don't wanna do you wrong, but you're making it hard for me. It's all or nothing, baby. I don't wanna see you go, but I can't keep it up.
I do a lot of like the kind of harmonic writing on the guitar. So I really like the sound of the electric guitar, like Dad was a guitarist, like I just like have like a good relationship with my ears in terms of that sound, like I'm drawn to like nice kind of guitar. So I find myself like, I'll often write something on the guitar, and sometimes that just fits. So, and like, so like I think because I play guitar and bass, like even if you have like the most kind of four to the floor housey kind of beat, if you put like some, you know, nice guitar that you've recorded through an amp and then play bass guitar over the top, it's gonna change. Like, you know, you're gonna get this kind of organic-y sound. And I think because, you know, I really like that kind of Kaytranada Disclosure um kind of synthy sounds, those kind of housey um sounds. Like I also, yeah, it's like I think the whole that's pretty much like the tunes. It's like how can I marry the electronic concepts that I like and the synth sounds um with the instruments that I play that, you know, I write on, and I kind of like those aesthetics. So it's kind of like how can I marry those two kind of things? And like with, I think just kind of getting better at Ableton and getting some, you know, like different kind of soft synths, which are, you know, the ones you can control with like your MIDI controller. I think it's fun because I don't own any kind of hardware synths, which I'd like to eventually, if I had the cash. But I'm also not like an amazing keys player, so I'd need to, for me to warrant, I'm a bit of a stinge. So like for me to warrant kind of buying something, like I would want to, you know, get a bit better at keys. And I've always kind of really pushed away from, you know, just buying something really good because you can when you don't know really how to use it. Like I always kind of, I think, yeah, just kind of growing up not having like a whole lot of cash at home, like it would always ship me to tears when like someone would have like a doozy guitar and I'm like, and they, you know, and they sucked. I was like, come on, man, like the things I could do with that. So like, I think I always try and get the most out of what I've got first. So like the synths that I've been using, like UE ones, which are awesome. It's like the Podolsky and the Tyrell, which are two free. You know, if anyone's listening wants to cop some dope synths, like between those two and just understanding, like, uh, just playing with the attack and the different frequencies and the filters and, adding chorus, and you can go a long way. And I think because like that's the cool thing about electronic sounds is they're really like you can manipulate like organic kind of acoustic sounds as well, but just the ease that you can get different sounds with synthesizers and stuff is crazy. So I spent a lot of time, and I'm getting better at it. And with my production, I will get there in the end, but I'm not like a Kenny Beats type person who can in half an hour just flesh out a whole song. So like stuff I'm listening to at the moment, like I guess I'll probably would start like local, like First Beige. Like those guys are so good. I really would recommend listening to them. Stevan, like Steven, but with an Stevan, like he's badass. Like the guys I work with a lot, like Ollie Sherman, KP Hydes, and I'm really into Milan Ring. She is like an awesome producer and singer and plays guitar. And like when I saw her live, like she's someone who like she gets it in terms of the live thing. She's got like she's all across the Ableton stuff, like triggering her stuff, but she's, sings amazingly, plays like guitar, like nothing else, like Milan Ring. I'm really digging like Godriguez, who did a lot of the early production for Sam for the Great. So like I'm really like I love my percussion stuff, and like that kind of ticks all my boxes. Like he's got a drummer, and his drummer is Tully, and his percussionist is Dom, and like between the two of them, they just make like just awesome sounding stuff. So yeah, Godriguez, I really love. Who else am I really digging? Pink Matter. They're a badass band out of Brisbane, who I've seen a couple of times. Groovy Daughter out of Canberra, just doing some really cool things. Genesis Owusu out of Canberra, always have a lot of time for them. Like it's been like a lot of the music that's come out at the moment, about like there's a lot going on in the world. And so I really love the stuff from like Dobby and Barker, especially that song I Can't Breathe. It's just like lots of powerful kind of stuff. Yeah, I think, that's kind of the stuff I'm into at the moment, from Sydney, just kind of, not Sydney, just Australia, off the top of my head, kind of like local guys, as well as, like the bigger acts. Like I'm huge fan of like, Middle Kids, Angie McMahon, still like Smash Mouth. I love how Tame Impala's become like an indie meme now. It's just, like it's so funny, like during COVID, like downloaded TikTok and it's just like listening to Tame Impala is just like a meme, and I'm just like, man, it's incredible. I love that, just from like recording whole albums in his share house to people taking the piss. Like it's just incredible. I love that. But then like international stuff, like Currumbin, like if you're not across Currumbin, their name is kind of hard to spell, but once you get there, it's awesome. They've done a lot of stuff with Leon Bridges, which is dope. Oh, back to Australia, Parcels. They are incredible band, got picked up by Daft Punk. They're awesome. Yeah, Anderson .Paak and the Free Nationals album I still listen to like probably once a fortnight. So damn good. Kamasi Washington for that kind of like newer jazz stuff is awesome. That Tom Misch Yusuf Day's album is, oh man. Also, there's this band called Grievous Bodily Calm. They're from Australia. They've just got this song Sync Step, which just like floored me. So good. But yeah, been getting back into kind of like the D'Angelo live stuff, which is dope. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been listening to lately. Also, Jay Huss's album, The Big Conspiracy or something. That album is out of control. Like that kind of like the UK sound, like anything that Dave is on. Big Conspiracy, Jay Huss, like that is a man.
Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why can't I keep it up? Tell me something, baby. I don't wanna do you wrong, but you're making it hard for me. It's all or nothing, baby. I don't wanna see you gone, but I can't keep it up. I can't keep it up. 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 Keep it up, yeah.
The track you just heard was the single Keep It Up by Sonny Grin. You also heard snippets of the track Hey Friend by the Tipsy Scholars, as well as the Sonny Grin track Lungs. You can find more information on Alec's work on our website, cassetteconnection.com. All-star female from Ben Harb.
What?
What's your email say
What's my email say?
regarding the interview?
Yeah. That's a roundabout way of asking me how I thought the interview went.
Well, we're there now, so.
Yeah, you're right. I thought it was a really good interview. I thought it was great. Alec is really interesting. He's really fun. He's a really great performer. He loves to get out and amongst it, I think. One of his big things is like he'll get out from behind the boards, behind the keyboard, and behind the computer and he'll take the drums, he'll take whatever instrument he's playing, just take it out there and get amongst the crowd.
Bit of crowd interaction.
Yeah. So fun. He also likes to do the classic, bring the vocalist up on stage, get them to come and sing a song, and I think it works really well. It brings a bit of dynamics to the set, changes up the flow of what's happening. But I think that was a great interview. I want to thank Alec for jumping on the show and being our second guest. And thank you for listening. This has been Cassette Connection. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Cassette Connection is recorded and produced by Ben Harb and Alex Ferrugia. For more information, head to our website, cassetteconnection.com.
You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Cassette Connection. And if you would like to be featured or just want to get in touch, our email is contact@cassetteconnection.com.